Restoration comedy. The comedy of manners developed during the age of John Dryden or the Restoration period. It was considerably influenced by continental writers and especially by the French dramatist Molière and the Spanish dramatist Calderon. It was a time when actresses were first appeared on the London stage. Molière provided the English dramatists with ideas for plot and comic characterization. The Spanish drama strengthened the love of intrigue and incidents which had been woven in the fabric of English comedy. The Restoration comedy was modelled on the realistic comedy of Ben Jonson and his followers in England and Molière in France. The attitude of Restoration age towards the drama was fundamentally frivolous. Shakespeare was too rich for this new age and he had too much poetry and complexity. There were many social and political factors that gave rise to what is known as the Restoration comedy. The era of imagination illuminated by William Shakespeare, and the spell of Ben Jonson and Christopher Marlowe was over. The era of reason had dawned which guided the actions in every walk of life. The drama also reflected the thought current in the period. The playwrights of the age concerned themselves with the polished personality of men and women and their manners. That is why it is also called comedy of manners or an artificial comedy. The Restoration comedy of manners is realistic in character in the sense that it focuses our attention on the life, manners, ways, the intrigues and foppery of the upper-class society. The Restoration comedy concentrated on the activities and amorous achievements of gay, frivolous, rakish type of young men and women. The scenes of the comedies were generally led in London, particularly in cafes, chocolate houses, clubs and gambling centres. Love intrigues were carried on in clandestine manner. A lot of senseless prattle went on and the fops and ladies spend their time in designing schemes and plans to ruin their rivals and competitors in love. The comedies of the Restoration devoted themselves specially to picturing the external details of life and fashions of time, its manners, its speech and interests. This was the kind of life led by the Restoration aristocratic classes, and it is this life which is presented in the comedy of manners. The Restoration comedy has characters coming from fashionable aristocratic society. Their plot revolved round love intrigues clothed in clever dialogues. The plots were mostly borrowed from French literature. The comedies also presented the public reactions against Puritanism. They were antisocial, in that, they represented social institutions, particularly marriage, as obnoxious. The comedy of manners has been criticized for its licentiousness, obscenity and immorality. But Bobade defends Restoration drama by saying, Restoration comedy expresses not licentiousness but a deep curiosity and desire to try a new way of life. The life presented in the comedy of manners is based on sex antagonism. The common conventions that the marriage is bore and love is primarily and exclusively a physical appetite are stressed through these comedies. In the comedy of manners, the women are audacious and flippant, any talk of male domination is resounded. There is full picture of bargaining and matrimony. Coming to the technical side of the comedy of manners, we find that there are weak plots and stock-in-trade characters. In these comedies, there are subplots that are intricate and monotonous. One of the most conspicuous qualities of the Restoration comedy is the witty exchange of words. Repartee is the very soul of their conversation. The style of the dramatists is marked with sparkling dialogues. The best period of Restoration comedy was brief. The plays that followed William Congreve and George Etheridge were imbued with moral intentions. They were dull, lifeless and insincere. The strength of the comedy of manners depended upon a particular social situation. No equally adequate dramatic form was discovered when sense and sensibility joined and replaced wit as a social idea. The Restoration comedy opens with the works of George Etheridge. George Etheridge's plays, The Comical Revenge and The Man of Modolph Pilling Flutter are very interesting comedies. George Etheridge's comedies are works on an artist, and that artistry takes away much of its social tone. He has not the skill of William Congreve, but the prose dialogues in his comedies are natural and brilliant. They can make up for the deficiency of plot construction. Sir John Vanbragh's The Provoked Husband is an unfinished drama written in 1705 and Colley Cibber completed it in 1728. In addition to this, William Wycherley's The Country Wife appeared in 1675 and Love in Wood, George Farquhar's The Constant Couple and The Inconstant, and Colley Cibber's The Non-Juror also added beauty and novelty to the Restoration comedy. Colley Cibber's The Non-Juror is based on Molière's play Tartuffe. William Congreve is the supreme master of the comedy of manners. His first play is Old Bachelor, a perfect piece of comic portraiture of a young man of 23. The next play of Congreve was The Double Dealer. Much of his wit and irony is displayed in this play. Congreve's best play is The Way of the World, written in 1700, which is known for its artistic excellence and flashes of brilliant witty dialogues. The Restoration comedy has certain characteristics. The comic figures in the Restoration comedy became entertaining because they made pretensions to be as fashionable, well-mannered and gallant as the noble men. Jealousy was a hideous crime in the comedy of manners. A jealous husband was perhaps the most mocked person in the Restoration comedy. A cuckold and cuckoldry became the part and parcel of the Restoration drama. In the comedy of manners, there is a new type of courtship where the romance was in the chase and not in the culmination of marriage. The people never allowed their pleasures to be spoiled with the dreary business of marriage. The coquettish heroines loved to be chased by the gallants and they enjoyed scandals. The amorous old women were another stock character in the Restoration comedy. Lady Touchwood pursued her husband's nephew and Lady Wishfort would have liked to have her niece's lover. Thus, the comedy of manners is full of immoral themes. Jeremy Collier criticized the Restoration comedy, particularly of William Congreve and John Vanbrugh, in his short view of the immorality and profaneness of the English stage in 1698.